Okay, welcome to my video here. Wanted to share with you what I've been doing recently. Actually, I started this project a couple months ago. I've been inspired by a lot of what I've seen on the internet, guys talking about and describing and showing how they're building models, and especially found the website of John Ernst, who's into building these balsa planes and planes that actually fly, and a lot of them are very detailed replicas of real planes. So I started out fairly simple. I bought a kit from, if you can see, this online company, easybuiltmodels.com. And what I liked about Easybuilt is all their models are rated in terms of ease of construction and ease of flying. And this particular model was easy to build and easy to fly. Although it may not look like it, I actually found it fairly, I've got a lot of it built right now, and I found it fairly easy and enjoyable to put together. This plane is called the Jimmy Allen Skokie, and Jimmy Allen was a fictional character from the 1930s, and this is actually kind of a fictional plane as far as I know. But it's kind of typical. It's a high-winged monoplane. You see the wing is above the fuselage, and the motor is a single motor in front. So anyway, the way you build these planes, there's been kind of an evolution of the building technique, and used to be you can see here, first of all, I've got the plans here. This is exact scale, and you lay the pieces down and glue them together. And used to be you would use pins on some sort of foam core base or something. Then someone came up with the idea of using these magnets. So there's actually a metal sheet underneath my plans. I've got the plans and wax paper, and these are magnets that I use here. And there are several benefits to these magnets. They're able to manipulate the project easier, I think, and especially in terms of, let me show you an example. You can get perpendicular pieces. So you can see here I just have this piece of balsa wood with two magnets that hold it perpendicular. And this is important in some of the pieces. It's really important to have good alignment, and having perpendicular pieces is important. For example, here's the wing, and you can see the ribs on the wing have to be perpendicular to get this set up. And then there's what's called the dihedral of the wing, where it's curved. You can see that it's curved upward. If I can kind of show you this way, that can be set, fairly easily. But all these other pieces, first you build one half of the wing, all these ribs are perpendicular, and then you build the center section and the other section. So you can see how that's important. And this is it's been years since I've built any kind of model. So this model, I had tried building a balsa wood model when I was very young, and I didn't do a very good job. But thanks to the internet, there's so much information and examples of how people do this. So after a lot of reading and looking at images, and just the sheer beauty of these things, I think, kind of overwhelmed me to the point where I really wanted to try it. And so the first thing I built on this model was the wing. If you look closely, you can probably see the glue. You see some of the glue joints. So I probably used too much glue. And let me tell you briefly what kind of glue I'm using. Most of the model was glued together using this Elmer's wood glue. It's not the same thing as regular Elmer's glue. This is not. It's not a white color like you would get at a Walgreens or some other kind of hardware or drugstore. But I'd use the wood glue and dilute it just a little bit with a drop of water. And with the wings, I put the pieces in place and then glued around them, which again probably used too much glue. What you find out from reading is people are trying to get these things as light as possible, and that includes using as little glue as possible. So try to learn from experience. And as I was going along and reading, when I came to these other pieces, I used less glue. And the other thing that I found out to be important is to make a very good perpendicular cut when you're cutting these pieces to size. And when you can make a perpendicular cut, you know that the pieces can fit together very flush, and this will make a strong glue joint. So you have to do that. And for cutting, I've mostly used the single edge razor. I found that to be the best for cutting. You can also use the X-Acto knife. These are actually, I haven't found them to be quite as useful as the blade, although I still use it at times. And the razor saw in some cases is helpful. For the most part, I just use the single edge razor. Now these are the tail feathers, as they're called. This is the tail, the rudder, which you can see here. Let me get it up closer. It's actually two pieces on each side that are kind of shaped aerodynamically, and a single stringer up here. And these are several pieces that are cut into shape. This has been sanded so that it's elliptical and more aerodynamic. These are the stabilizers, which go on either side. These are just mirror images of each other in the same technique. Two pieces, upper and lower, sanded smooth. And talking about sandpaper, the other interesting thing I've done is I've made different tools for sanding. And actually, first thing I ordered was these foam sanding blocks, which you can get at the Easybuilt site. There's a coarse and a fine, but I found that I needed something even finer, so I bought some, I think this is 600 grade, and I just made a couple of sanding blocks to use for sanding. And the main thing is you want to see this plane will be covered with tissue, so you want to get the surfaces nice and smooth where the tissue will go. And let's see. Here's my landing gear. These are actually two pieces of piano wire. Actually, my first attempt at bending this piano wire, I wasn't used to using piano wire, so here's my first attempt, and I broke one side of it, and the other side, once you bend this piano wire, it's hard to get it back to shape. And so I just went out and bought some more wire and redid it. These two pieces are joined. I did try soldering, but this wire is thick enough that you really got to heat it up a lot to get the solder to flow, and I just wasn't satisfied with the joint, so I went with wrapping it with thread and then using some CA glue, cyanoacrylate glue, to hold the thread and glue this together, and that seems to work really good. And the plans call for putting these kind of streamlined, so I have one side has a groove in it, and this will fit on like this, and eventually I'll glue these on and streamline them, actually sand them a little bit. The kit also came with these very interesting vacuum formed wheels that came in two halves, and I just was cut them out of their mold and then glue them together. These don't have to be anything super detailed. I will paint the tire parts of them black eventually, but these will go on here, and that will be the landing gear for the plane. This will go on here like this. Let's see if we can get this in here. Yeah, so go on like this. So you see how that works. And well, let's see, another interesting tool that I came up with. Actually, I got this idea off the internet. I ran out of some of these really thin stringers, so I just used some of the leftover wood in the kit, and I made this balsa stripper. Really all it is just pieces of wood, and then I have the height is the precise width, and I used a double-edged razor. I just took it apart and glued the blade here, and this I mean, this worked okay. It wasn't super accurate because when you slide the wood under, it kind of pushes the blade up a little bit. But I really only had to deal with a couple of pieces, so I was just able to sand them down to the narrow width that I needed, and that worked out fine. And let's see, the next thing that I'm going to be doing, well, you can see here the instrument panel, which was, if you can look down here, it's kind of off the camera, but part of the plan included the instrument panel. I just made a photocopy, and then you glue the instrument panel in there so you get a degree of detail. And let's see, the next thing is covering the plane with tissue. I've never done that before, so I made this little frame out of balsa wood. Actually, I did it last night and tried covering it, and actually it's a little too long because it didn't, on the ends here, I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can see there. Right in this area I get a really nice finish, but it wrinkled up a little bit here, and it's simply because I should have put another support in there. But as a test example, this was a great experience. And this is another area where there's been some kind of evolution of thinking. It used to be you would coat the frame with dope and then put the tissue paper on and then coat it with dope. This process, which I've read about, it sounds kind of awkward, and also you get this really bad smell of dope. But nowadays they've evolved the technique of using this purple glue stick. So this seems a lot more easier. Basically, you just glue stick the edge of the frame. You set the tissue paper on there and kind of tighten it a little bit, and then when it's dry, you spritz it with water, and then it dries and shrinks up real nice. So this test worked really well. I'm pretty happy with it. So I think I'm going to try doing the wing. The other thing is to cut to get a nice cut of the tissue paper. I use this scalpel. This is a disposable scalpel. I've got a whole box of them. You can see over here, so that should work good. See, this is the nose, which was a solid block that I cut and sanded. That was kind of fun. Balsa wood is really a lot of fun to work with because it's so pliable and easy to shape. And here's the nose piece that came with it. You have a nice little needle bearing, and this will go on the nose. You can see the rubber band. The motor is a rubber band, a piece of, or a string of rubber that you tie together. It'll go from the front, and then there'll be a post that goes back here. And so you can get I think you can get about 400 turns. I don't know if I'm gonna, I don't know if I'll have the room to try it. I have to do a lot of experimenting with test flying before I actually do that. So let's see what else. Another thing that I'm going to try is I have these very small magnets, and I'm going to try and put the magnets in here because this nose needs to be removable. Because when you wind it up, you'll have a rubber band will come out quite a ways, and you want to keep it fairly taut as you wind it. And so I'm going to use rubber bands, or magnets in here to hold the nose on. I have to experiment with that a little bit. Anyway, I will try to give an update next time around. Thanks for watching.